A peculiar discovery. The alien University of Centurius Prime was a marvel of cosmic academia. Its spires twisted into the lavender sky, a testament to the knowledge housed within. Beings from across the galaxy flocked to its hallowed halls in pursuit of enlightenment. Among them was Zach Turin, the first human ever admitted. Zach walked the iridescent corridors with a mix of excitement and trepidation. He was keenly aware of his status as an outsider. His fellow students regarded him with curiosity, their multifaceted eyes tracking his every move. But Zach was undeterred. He had worked tirelessly to earn his place here, poring over quantum theorems and mastering xenolinguistics. As part of the university's rigorous orientation process, all incoming students were required to undergo a comprehensive DNA analysis. It was a formality, meant to catalog the vast array of species represented on campus. Zach thought nothing of it as he submitted his genetic sample, a simple cheek swab. Days later, Zach found himself summoned to the Department of Xenogenetics. Puzzled, he entered the cavernous laboratory, where a trio of alien scientists awaited him. Their expressions were grave, their postures tense. "Zach Turin," began Professor Xander, his resonant voice betraying a hint of disbelief. "We have analyzed your DNA, and the results are extraordinary." Zach's brow furrowed. "Extraordinary? How so?" Xander gestured to a holographic display, where a complex web of genetic markers rotated lazily. "Your DNA contains sequences that are not human. In fact, they belong to an ancient species, the primals, long thought extinct." Zach felt the floor tilt beneath him. "That's impossible. I'm human. I was born on Earth. And yet, the evidence is irrefutable," Xander said softly. "You, Zach Turin, are the genetic legacy of a lost civilization, a civilization whose power once reshaped the very fabric of the cosmos." As Zach struggled to process this revelation, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he could scarcely imagine. He had come to the University of Centurius Prime seeking knowledge, but he now realized that the greatest mystery lay within himself. Unraveling the mystery. In the days following the shocking discovery, Zach found himself the subject of intense scrutiny. Professor Xander and his team of xenogeneticists pored over Zach's DNA, seeking to unravel its secrets. They sequenced and analyzed, compared and contrasted, their excitement growing with each new finding. "The primal sequences in your genome are unlike anything we've encountered," Xander explained, his holographic projections painting the air with swirling nucleotides. "They seem to hold the key to abilities long relegated to myth and legend." Zach leaned forward, his eyes wide. "What kind of abilities?" Xander's gaze met Zach's, his expression a mix of wonder and apprehension. "Enhanced strength, accelerated healing, telepathic potential. The primals were said to wield the very forces of the universe." Zach's mind reeled. He had always been an exceptional student, quick to learn and adapt. But this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. As the investigation into his genetic heritage continued, Zach found himself struggling with questions of identity. He had always been proud of his human roots, of the tenacity and ingenuity that had propelled his species to the stars. But now, he couldn't help but feel a sense of otherness, a gulf between himself and his peers. "You are still you, Zach," counseled Neela, his Alpharidian friend, her iridescent eyes brimming with sympathy. "Your DNA doesn't define you. It's your choices, your actions, that matter." Zach took comfort in her words, but the weight of his discovery still hung heavy upon him. He threw himself into his studies, determined to prove himself worthy of his place at the university. Weeks turned into months, and slowly the initial fervor surrounding Zach's unique genetic makeup began to subside. He started to believe that perhaps he could find a new normal, a way to integrate this knowledge of his heritage into his identity. But even as Zach focused on his studies, forces beyond his understanding were already in motion. Deep in the bowels of the university, In laboratories sealed off from prying eyes, Professor Xander and his team were conducting experiments, pushing the boundaries of genetic manipulation. And in the shadows of the galaxy, whispers began to spread of the human with primal DNA, the key to unlocking powers long thought lost. For there were those who would stop at nothing to possess such power, to bend it to their will. Zack remained oblivious to the gathering storm, but his world was about to be upended once more. For the secrets hidden within his DNA would not remain hidden forever, and the consequences would be beyond anything he could imagine. Awakening abilities. As Zack delved deeper into his studies, he found himself increasingly drawn to the enigma of his own biology. Under Professor Xander's guidance, he began to explore the potential locked within his DNA. It started with small things, a heightened sense of perception, an uncanny ability to absorb and retain information. Zack dismissed these as the products of his rigorous training, but Xander knew better. Your primal heritage is starting to manifest, the professor explained, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and caution. We must proceed carefully, learn to harness these abilities safely. Zack nodded, a thrill of anticipation coursing through him. In the controlled environment of Xander's lab, he began to push the boundaries of his newfound powers. He soon discovered that his strength had grown exponentially. Weights that once strained his muscles now felt as light as feathers. His reflexes quickened, allowing him to dodge laser blasts with preternatural ease. And when he suffered an injury during a particularly intense training session, he watched in awe as the wound knitted itself back together, leaving unblemished skin in its wake. Regenerative capabilities. Xander marveled, his instruments confirming what his eyes had witnessed. A hallmark of primal physiology. As word of Zack's extraordinary abilities spread through the university, reactions were mixed. Some of his peers regarded him with awe, seeing in him the potential for greatness. Others, however, viewed him with suspicion and fear, their whispers carrying undertones of mistrust. He's too powerful, Zack overheard a Zephyrian student hiss to her companion. What if he loses control? What if he turns against us? Zack tried to ignore the murmurs, focusing instead on mastering his abilities. But he couldn't shake the growing sense of isolation, the feeling that he was becoming something other than human. It was Neela who provided a lifeline, her unwavering friendship a beacon in the midst of Zack's turmoil. You are more than your abilities, Zack, she reminded him gently. You have a good heart, a strong spirit. That's what truly matters. Bolstered by her support, Zack threw himself into his training with renewed determination. Under Xander's watchful eye, he learned to channel his strength, to wield his regenerative powers with precision. But even as he grew more confident in his abilities, Zack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that his every move was being scrutinized by unseen forces. He had no way of knowing that his fears were well-founded, that his existence had attracted the attention of those who sought to exploit his power for their own gain. For deep in the shadows, a nefarious plot was taking shape. The Zorgans, a warlike race with a history of galactic conquest, had learned of the human with primal DNA. They saw in Zack a weapon, a means to tip the scales of power in their favor. As Zack trained, unaware of the gathering storm, the Zorgans mobilized their forces. They would stop at nothing to possess the key to the primal's power, to harness it for their own nefarious ends. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the university, and Zack found himself at the center of it all. For the true test of his abilities was yet to come, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Rising tensions. The arrival of the Zorgan delegation sent shockwaves through the University of Centurius Prime. The hulking reptilian warriors strode through the halls with an air of menace, their intentions clear to all who laid eyes upon them. Zack watched from the shadows as the Zorgans met with the university's governing council. He strained to hear the hushed conversations, the tense negotiations. It soon became clear that the Zorgans had come for him, demanding that he be handed over into their custody. The human is a weapon, growled the Zorgan commander, his yellow eyes glinting with malice. He belongs in the hands of those who can properly wield his power. The council protested, arguing that Zack was a student, not a tool of war. But the Zorgans were unmoved, their threats growing more explicit with each passing moment. As word of the Zorgans' demand spread, Zack found himself at the center of a firestorm. Some students, driven by fear, urged the council to comply, to hand Zack over for the greater good. Others rallied around him, declaring that the university had a duty to protect one of its own. Zack himself was torn. Part of him wanted to run, to disappear into the vastness of space and leave the troubles behind. But another part, the part that had grown under Xander's tutelage, knew that he couldn't turn his back on those who had become his friends, his family. "I won't let them use me as a weapon," Zack declared to Neela and Xander, his voice filled with determination. "I won't be the cause of more bloodshed." The Zorgan threat. The Zorgan ship hurtled through the void, its engines thrumming with menacing power. In a dimly lit cell, Zack sat, his hands bound, his mind racing. He had played right into their hands, offering himself up in a misguided attempt to protect the university. But now, as the reality of his situation sank in, he knew he had to find a way to escape, to thwart the Zorgans' sinister plans. The cell door slid open, revealing the imposing figure of the Zorgan commander. Comfortable, human, he sneered, his reptilian features contorted in a mockery of a smile. Zack met his gaze unflinchingly. "What do you want with me? My power?" The commander laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Your power, yes, but more than that. We want the secrets of the primals, the knowledge hidden within your genetic code." Zack's blood ran cold. He had seen firsthand the destructive potential of his abilities, the havoc they could wreak in the wrong hands. The thought of the Zorgans wielding such power was too horrifying to contemplate. "I won't help you," he said, his voice steely with resolve. "I won't be your weapon." The commander's eyes narrowed. "We have ways of extracting what we need, human. One way or another, the secrets of the primals will be ours." With that, he turned and stalked out, leaving Zack alone with his mounting dread. Hours turned into days as the Zorgan ship raced towards its destination. Zack was subjected to a battery of tests, his captors probing and prodding, seeking to unlock the mysteries of his DNA. But even as they pushed him to the brink, Zack clung to his resolve. He would not bend, would not break. He owed it to his friends, to the galaxy, to resist with every fiber of his being. It was during one of these grueling sessions that the alarm sounded, a shrill klaxon that pierced the air. The ship shuddered, the unmistakable sign of an attack. In the chaos, Zack saw his chance. Summoning every ounce of his strength, he broke free of his restraints, his primal powers surging to the surface. He burst out of the lab, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the ship. Around every corner, Zorgan soldiers appeared, their weapons drawn. But Zack was a force of nature, his every move fueled by desperation and determination. As he fought his way towards the hangar bay, Zack's mind raced. Who was attacking the ship? Had the university come for him, mounting a daring rescue mission? The answer became clear as he reached the hangar. There, amidst the swirling maelstrom of laser fire and explosions, stood Neela and Xander, leading a strike force of university fighters. "Zack," Neela cried, her relief palpable even over the din of battle. "We thought we'd lost you." Zack's heart swelled, the sight of his friends reigniting the hope he'd thought extinguished. Together, they fought their way to a waiting ship, dodging blaster bolts and trading fire with the Zorgan horde. As they blasted out of the hangar, the Zorgan ship receding behind them, Zack finally allowed himself to breathe. They had done it. They had escaped. But even as the university fighters celebrated their victory, Zack knew this was only the beginning. The Zorgans would not relent, would not rest until they had what they wanted. The battle had been won, but the war stretched out before them, vast and uncertain. Zack looked to Neela and Xander, seeing in their eyes the same determination that burned within him. Together, they would face the challenges ahead. Together, they would fight for the fate of the galaxy. For in Zach's veins flowed the power of the primals, and with it, the hope for a brighter tomorrow. Turning the tide. The return to the University of Centaurus Prime was bittersweet. Zach, Neela, and Xander were hailed as heroes, their daring rescue mission the stuff of legend. But even as the university celebrated, the specter of the Zorgon threat loomed large. In the days that followed, the university became a hive of activity. The council, recognizing the gravity of the situation, mobilized all its resources. Scientists and strategists worked round the clock, seeking a way to counter the Zorgon's relentless advance. At the center of it all was Zach. No longer just a student, he found himself thrust into the role of leader, his unique abilities making him a key figure in the university's defense. Under Xander's guidance, Zach honed his powers, learning to wield them with precision and control. He spent long hours in the training room, pushing himself to his limits and beyond, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the university, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on his shoulders. As the days turned into weeks, the Zorgon fleet drew ever closer, their approach marked by a growing sense of dread. The university fortified its defenses, every student and faculty member contributing to the war effort in their own way. Neela worked tirelessly in the labs, her brilliant mind focused on devising new weapons and defensive technologies. Xander coordinated the university's forces, his tactical acumen proving invaluable in the face of the Zorgon onslaught. And Zach, he became the university's champion, the living embodiment of its defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. When the Zorgons finally attacked, descending upon the university in a storm of laser fire and plasma bombs, Zach was ready. He met the invaders head-on, his primal powers unleashed in a display of raw, unbridled power. The battle raged for days, the university's defenses holding fast against the Zorgon assault. Zach was everywhere at once, a blur of motion and energy, striking down the enemy with a ferocity that left even his allies in awe. But for all his power, Zach knew he couldn't win this fight alone. It was the combined efforts of every student and teacher, every scientist and soldier, that turned the tide. In a final, desperate push, the university's forces drove the Zorgons back, their ships retreating into the void from whence they'd come. The university had emerged victorious, battered but unbroken. In the aftermath of the battle, Zach was hailed as a savior, his name spoken with reverence by all who had witnessed his incredible feats. But for Zach, the adulation felt hollow. He knew that his power, the very thing that had saved the university, also made him a target. As long as he remained, the university would be in danger. The Zorgons would not rest until they had captured him, until they had unlocked the secrets of his primal DNA. With a heavy heart, Zach made a decision. To protect those he loved, he would have to leave, to disappear into the vastness of space. It was the only way to ensure the university's safety, to draw the Zorgons' attention away from those who had become his family. And so, in the dead of night, Zach bid a silent farewell to the University of Centaurus Prime. With Neela and Xander's reluctant blessing, he boarded a small, unmarked ship and set out into the unknown, a solitary figure carrying the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. The university had been saved, but for Zach, the journey was only beginning. With his primal powers and an unshakable resolve, he would take the fight to the Zorgons, wherever they might be. For he was Zach Turin, the human who had become so much more, and his destiny, intertwined with that of the galaxy itself, was waiting to be written among the stars. A new path. The vastness of space stretched out before Zach, an infinite expanse of possibility and peril. In the weeks since his departure from the University of Centaurus Prime, he had wandered the star lanes, a solitary figure seeking his place in a galaxy that had been forever changed by his existence. The decision to leave had not been easy. Zach's heart ached for the friends he had left behind, for the life he had built within the hallowed halls of the university. But he knew that his presence would only bring further danger, that the Zorgans would stop at nothing to possess the power that flowed through his veins. And so he had set out, not to run from his destiny, but to embrace it on his own terms. With Professor Xander's parting gift, a small unassuming data chip containing all the university's research on primal DNA, Zach embarked on a journey of self-discovery. He traveled to distant worlds, seeking out ancient ruins and forgotten repositories of knowledge. He delved into the mysteries of his heritage, piecing together the fragmented history of the primals, the race whose legacy he carried. As he learned more about his powers, about the incredible potential locked within his genetic code, Zach began to understand the true nature of his responsibility. He was not just a human, not just a student. He was a bridge between the past and the future, a living conduit for a power that could reshape the galaxy. With this realization came a newfound sense of purpose. Zach knew that he could not hide from his destiny, could not simply watch from the sidelines as the Zorgans sought to plunge the galaxy into darkness. He began to seek out allies, other beings who shared his vision of a galaxy united in peace and understanding. Some were scholars, like Xander, driven by a thirst for knowledge and a belief in the transformative power of education. Others were warriors, battle-hardened veterans who had seen the horrors of war and sought a better way. Together, they formed a loose alliance, a network of like-minded individuals working towards a common goal. They shared information, pooled resources, and slowly began to turn the tide against the Zorgans' relentless advance. Zach became a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in a galaxy beset by darkness. His name was whispered in the streets of 1,000 worlds, a rallying cry for those who believed in a brighter tomorrow. And yet, for all his newfound purpose, Zach never forgot his roots. He carried the memories of his time at the University of Centurious Prime with him always, a reminder of the bonds of friendship and the power of knowledge. In quiet moments, he would think of Neela and Xander, wondering what had become of them in his absence. He hoped that they were safe, that they had found their own paths in the wake of his departure. Deep down, Zach knew that their paths would cross again, that the fight against the Zorgans, against the forces of oppression and tyranny, was far from over. But for now, he had a mission, a purpose, and with the power of the primals flowing through his veins, he would not rest until the galaxy was safe, until every being, human or alien, could live in peace and freedom. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with peril, but Zach Terran, the human who had become so much more, was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For he knew that, in the end, it was not the power of his DNA that defined him, but the strength of his spirit, the unbreakable bonds of friendship, and the unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. With a deep breath, Zach plotted a new course, the stars blurring into streaks of light as his ship leaped into the unknown. A new chapter was beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end.